State of Michigan versus Joshua Ferguson, docket number 21-299FC. And this is a time set for a no contest plea to counts 6 and 7. Mr. Ferguson, would you raise your right hand, please? Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Mr. Ferguson, you have the right to an attorney. You are represented by Mr. Etheridge. Mr. Etheridge has advised me this is a plea to count 6 and 7 and no contest plea. And Mr. Etheridge, would you waive reading of counts 1 through 5?
Yes, Your Honor.
Ms. Allen, would you read 6 and 7, please?
In the people of the state of Michigan versus Joshua Ferguson, filed 21-299-FC, State of Michigan, County of Ingham, in the name of the people of the state of Michigan, the prosecuting attorney for this county appears before the court and informs the court that on or about March 17th, 2021, at Selma Street and Willoughby Road in Delhi Township, Ingham County, the defendant did, in count 6, commit the offense of domestic violence, that he did make an assault or an assault and battery upon Monet Latrice Thomas, an individual with whom he had a child in common, or a resident or former resident of his household, or an individual with whom he had a dating relationship, contrary to Michigan law. There's a notice under Michigan law that this offense may have resulted in damage to another person's property or physical injury or death to another individual, and therefore there may be restitution. This is a misdemeanor punishable by up to 93 days and or $500. A consecutive sentence may be imposed under Michigan law if the assault was committed in a place of confinement, and in count 7 on the amended information did commit the offense of attempted assault with intent to do great bodily harm less than murder or by strangulation, that the defendant did attempt to commit the following listed offense, and in the attempt did act towards the commission of that offense, but failed in the perpetration or was prevented in the execution thereof, contrary to Michigan law, that he did make an assault upon Monet Latrice Thomas with intent to do great bodily harm less than the crime of murder, contrary to Michigan law. This is a felony punishable by up to 5 years and or $2,500. Court shall order law enforcement to collect DNA identification profiling samples and was committed against the peace and dignity of the state of Michigan.
Mr. Ferguson, you're being charged here with domestic assault and battery. That is a misdemeanor punishable by up to 93 days in jail. And attempted assault with intent to do great bodily harm less than murder. That is a felony punishable by up to 5 years in prison. If you were on parole at the time of that offense, it would be a mandatory consecutive sentence. Have you had enough time to talk about these charges with your attorney?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you understand the charges against you?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you have any questions about what we're doing?
No, ma'am.
How do you want to plead? Or you want to plead no contest, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
If your plea of no contest is accepted by this court, it means you won't have a trial of any kind, and you'll be giving up the rights that go along with a trial. That means you'll give up the right to a trial by jury, or if you didn't want trial by jury, trial by judge. You'll give up the right to be presumed innocent until proven guilty, and to require the prosecutor to prove your guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. You'll give up your right to have the witnesses against you appear at the trial and to be able to cross-examine them, as well as the right to have this court order any witnesses that you might have to appear at the trial. You'll give up your right to remain silent at the trial and not to have your silence used against you, or if you wanted to testify at the trial. Also, there's some things that are different about appeals when you plead guilty or no contest. The first is that you don't get an automatic right to have the higher court look at your case. Instead, you'd have to ask them to take it, and they'd have to agree to look at it. The second way it's different is that there's many issues when you plead no contest that you simply will not be able to appeal. That's different than people who go to trial. If they get convicted, they can appeal pretty much everything. Do you understand those rights, Mr. Ferguson?
Yes, ma'am.
Also, if I accept your plea, it means you cannot come back later on and try to say that the plea was the result of some promise or threat that no one told me about today. Do you understand that?
Yes, ma'am.
It also means you can't come back later on and try to say it really wasn't your own choice to plead guilty today. Do you understand that?
Yes, ma'am.
And is there a plea agreement, Ms. Allen?
There is, Your Honor. In exchange for the defendant's successful plea and sentence of no contest to count 6 and count 7 on the amended information, we agree to dismiss the balance. We also agree not to issue any new charges arising from this case, specifically in relation to any jail calls or contact with the victim. There's also a sentence agreement pursuant to People versus Killebrew that the defendant's upfront jail will not exceed 12 months in the Ingham County Jail.
Is that a full and complete statement, Mr. Etheridge?
Yes, it is, Your Honor.
Mr. Ferguson, is that your understanding of the agreement?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you agree with it?
Yes, ma'am.
There is this agreement about your sentence, and that is that it would be no more than 12 months in jail. If I decided for some reason not to go along with that, I would tell you before I sentenced you, and I'd give you a chance, if you wanted to take back this plea and start over. You got all that?
Yes, ma'am.
Has anyone promised you anything else that hasn't been said here right now in order to get you to plead no contest today?
No, ma'am.
Has anyone used any threats to get you to do it?
No.
Is this your own choice?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and Mr. Etheridge, the basis for the reason for a no contest plea?
Civil liability, Your Honor.
Okay. And the people agree with a no contest plea?
Yes, Your Honor, thank you.
Okay, and I've been provided some police reports from the Ingham County Sheriff's Office. I have reviewed those, and I find that all of these events occurred on or about March 17 of 2021, all in Delhi Township, Ingham County, Michigan. And on that date in Ingham County, Mr. Ferguson got into an argument with Monet, and Monet was an individual who had been dating Mr. Ferguson for several years. They lived together and have a child in common. In the course of this argument, she reported to the police that Mr. Ferguson was trying to fight her, took her car keys out of the vehicle. He was trying to physically fight her, she said, threatened her, get out of the car, I'm going to beat your ass. And he proceeded to take her car keys and head inside. There was a further confrontation, and he walked towards her in a way where she thought he was going to hit her. Based on his previous statements and the context of their whole argument here, that would appear to be a reasonable person would be in fear of a physical battery from those words under these circumstances. And continuing with the altercation, Monet discovered at some point that while she was in her car, that Mr. Ferguson was still in the area, and in fact, she reported that when she was near the intersection of Selma Street and Willoughby Road, she saw him appear from behind a tree. He started to make a move towards her again, and then he started shooting his gun at her as she sped away. It's apparent from her statement that they were in somewhat close proximity. He fired multiple shots from a handgun. She identified him, she could see the gun, and indicated that she was being shot at, which would be an attempt to commit great bodily harm less than murder. And has the court complied with MCR 6.302, Ms. Allen?
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Etheridge?
Yes, Your Honor.
Are you aware of any promises, threats, or inducements other than those already placed on the record, Ms. Allen?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Etheridge?
No, Your Honor.
The court finds the plea is understandingly and voluntarily made without undue influence, threats, or promises of leniency. And per the findings of the court, it is an accurate plea as to counts 6 and 7, supported by the findings. The plea is accepted and a conviction will enter on count 6, domestic assault and battery, and count 7, attempted assault with intent to do great bodily harm less than murder. And I have a sentencing date of Monday, August 9 at 3:30, if that works for you, Mr. Etheridge.
I believe it does, Your Honor.
Okay, Mr. Ferguson, is it okay with you if we do the sentencing the same way we did the plea? So you stay in the jail and we do it over Zoom?
I guess I ain't got no choice.
Well, the other option is we transport you from the jail here to the courthouse. So I need your consent to do it by Zoom.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Then that will be remote sentencing again on Monday, August 9th at 3:30. And Mr. Ferguson, you should just know that the probation department will be contacting you. They're going to set up a meeting with you so that they can interview you for the report that I'll use for sentencing, so it is quite important. Do you have any questions before we go?
No, ma'am.
Okay, you can tell them at the jail then that you're all set.